Man is a thread of desire stretched between the animal and the Superman. Friedrich Nietzsche. Have you ever wondered why some people seem unshakable while others are dragged down by their own impulses? Desire can be a prison or a tool of power, but without control, it rules you. The question is, are you the master of your will or just a prisoner of it? Nietzsche saw the human being as something unfinished, a being in constant tension between its primitive nature and its highest potential, between instinct and reason, between being dominated by one's own desires or mastering them. But look around you. What do you see? People who are free or slaves to their impulses. The truth is brutal. Most people don't control their own desires. How many times have you made a decision that seemed inevitable? A message you shouldn't have sent? A habit you vowed to give up? A temptation that overcame your discipline? Were you in control? Or were you just a spectator of your own weakness? From the moment we wake up, we are bombarded by stimuli designed to capture our attention and manipulate our desires. Social media, food, pornography, compulsive shopping. The world is built to hold you hostage to immediate pleasure, to turn your brain into a dog that salivates at the sound of the reward. And what's worse, you don't even notice. Now stop and look at history. Who are the people who really achieved something great? Warriors, philosophers, leaders, artists. What did they all have in common? Discipline, self-control, the power to turn desire into strength. Lust, uncontrollable desire, is the weakness that has destroyed empires and broken great men. But it is also the key to greatness if you learn to control it. Those who control their impulses have a power that few understand. They don't live at the mercy of immediate pleasure. They aren't slaves to their own wills. They shape their own destinies. In this video, we're going to reveal the secret that the ancients already knew, but that the modern world does everything it can to hide. We'll explore how desire can destroy you, how it can be a weapon against you, and above all, how you can turn it into your greatest strength. And now tell me, do you still believe you're in control? Desire has always been the engine of humanity. It has built empires, inspired art, moved scientists in search of answers, and driven millions to madness. But there's a detail that few realize. What drives us can also destroy us. If you don't control your desire, it controls you. And in this case, what seemed to be a source of pleasure can become a trap with no way out. Since ancient times, philosophers and sages have tried to understand this duality. The Stoics said that man must be master of himself, that true freedom only exists when we are not slaves to our wills. Nietzsche saw desire as a vital force, but warned that only the strong would know how to channel it into something greater. Buddha, on the other hand, taught that desire is the root of suffering as it creates eternal dissatisfaction. 3 different perspectives, but all pointing to the same problem: the struggle between control and impulsiveness. Now look around you. We live in the age of limitless desire. Everything is just a click away. Pleasure has never been so accessible. And at the same time, we've never been so lost. Social networks bombard us with constant stimuli, addict us to dopamine, and make us seek endless validation. Pornography distorts our perception of pleasure, creating a dependency that devalues real human contact. Consumerism turns every little desire into an urgent need. The result? A world full of exhausted, frustrated, and empty people. And the cruel thing is that this doesn't happen by chance. There is a system designed to keep you stuck in this trap. Neuroscience has proven that our brains work in a reward cycle, where we seek immediate pleasure to relieve momentary discomfort. The problem is that the more we give in to these impulses, the harder it becomes to resist. Self-control weakens, and every small concession reinforces compulsive behavior. Desire turns from an ally into a tyrant. But there is a way out. History shows us that the great conquerors, and I'm not just talking about kingdoms, but minds and destinies, are those who have learned to use desire to their advantage and not the other way around. Alexander the Great said that conquering oneself was the greatest victory of all. Bruce Lee taught that a man who masters his impulses becomes invincible. The samurai lived by a code where discipline was more important than life. These people understood something essential. Without control, desire is a poison. But under discipline, it can be transformed into fuel. And here comes the big question. How do you break free from this prison? How do you break out of the cycle of immediate gratification and regain control over your own mind? The answer lies in the transmutation of desire. This means not repressing it, but redirecting it. Take all the energy you waste on empty impulses and use it to build something solid. Every great creator, artist, or leader has understood this. Instead of being slaves to their own desire, they turned it into motivation to grow, to create, to excel. The first step towards this change is awareness. You need to see clearly where your desire is controlling you. What habits, what patterns, what distractions are weakening you? The second step is resistance. Every time you say no to a destructive impulse, you are saying yes to your own power. At first, this seems impossible because your brain has been conditioned to take the easy way out. But resistance is like a muscle. The more you practice it, the stronger it becomes. At the end of the day, the big question isn't eliminating desire. That would be impossible. The question is, will you continue to be dragged down by it, or will you learn to use it for something greater? That's the real test. That's the path to true freedom. But what if I told you that this battle wasn't fair from the start? That the game has already been rigged to ensure that you never win? Because desire is never satisfied. The more you give into it, the more it demands of you. But why does this happen? And more importantly, how can you escape this cycle? That's what we're going to find out now. Wake up, work, pay bills, sleep, and repeat it all over again the next day. Life goes by like this, and one day you realize that time has slipped away. Dreams were postponed. Opportunities went unnoticed. This happens because no one ever taught you how to see the game of life the right way. But there is another path. If you want to reach the next level, you need to access new knowledge. And that's exactly what you'll find in the White Rabbit Codes. This book will open your eyes to what is really happening. You'll understand why you keep getting stuck in the same cycles, learn how to escape autopilot, and start seeing the opportunities that were always there. And finally, you'll make decisions that truly lead to the life you've always wanted. If you feel ready for this change, the link is in the pinned comment. You'll be surprised at how simple it can be to increase your prosperity. Success is a decision. The choice is yours. Pleasure should be a reward, something we experience after an achievement, after effort, after waiting. But what happens when pleasure stops being a reward and becomes a constant need? We live in the age of instant gratification. The modern world has conditioned us to seek pleasure at all times. One click and you have endless entertainment. One order on the app and the food arrives effortlessly. One swipe and a new person appears on your screen. Everything is designed so that pleasure is never far away, so that desire never has to wait. But has this made us happier? If the answer were yes, then why does dissatisfaction grow? Why does it never seem to be enough? Neuroscience explains it brutally. Pleasure is not designed to last. The dopamine system, which governs our impulses and rewards, operates in a cruel way. It releases a feeling of euphoria before we achieve anything, but as soon as we do, the effect quickly wears off. This means that pleasure is not a destination, it's a trap. As soon as you reach it, you need more. And this cycle is not a mistake. It was shaped by evolution. Think of our ancestors. If they felt fully satisfied after eating a single meal, they would have no motivation to look for food the next day and would starve to death. If they found a partner and never felt the need to seek connection again, the species would stop reproducing. Constant desire is what kept us alive. But in today's world, where everything is available all the time, this same mechanism destroys us. The philosopher Schopenhauer said that life swings like a pendulum between desire and boredom. When we want something, we suffer from the lack. When we get it, we get bored and need a new desire. And this cycle never ends. The proof is everywhere. Experiments with rats showed that when they had unlimited access to a lever that released dopamine in the brain, they ignored food, sex, and rest. They kept pressing the button until they died of exhaustion. Now think of the modern world. Social networks designed to grab your attention, delivery apps that eliminate any effort, pornography accessible at any moment, drugs that give you euphoria in seconds. We're not so different from rats. We just have more sophisticated levers. And what happens when you live like this? First, your tolerance for pleasure increases. What used to be enough now seems bland. A simple coffee no longer brings the same satisfaction, so you need something stronger. A video no longer entertains you, so you need something more extreme. A partner is no longer enough, so you look for new distractions. Pleasure never reaches the top, it always moves up a notch. This has a name: hedonic adaptation. Your brain gets used to anything, no matter how pleasurable it is. This means that if you pursue immediate pleasure as your main goal, you're doomed to always need more. and the more you need, the weaker you become. But it's not just a biological issue. There's something even more perverse at play. The fact that this system didn't come about naturally. It was designed. Every bright color on your phone, every notification that vibrates, every series that ends with a hook for the next episode, every endless feed that makes you scroll endlessly, all of this has been calculated by engineers, designers, and experts in human behavior. Immediate pleasure is the most efficient chain to keep you hooked. But the question is, does that mean we're doomed? Is there no way out? The answer is complex, because the real issue is not just pleasure itself, but the kind of pleasure we seek. If you spend your life chasing easy, immediate pleasures, you'll never get real satisfaction. But if you learn to seek pleasure in the process, in the effort, in the construction, then perhaps you will discover a path that few others find. The question now is, do you control your pleasure, or does it control you? But what if the problem is even bigger? What if we're not just victims of our desire, but also of a system that has learned to manipulate us perfectly? You think you're free, that you make your own decisions, that you choose what you want. But what if I told you that a large part of your will isn't really your own? That your desires have been implanted without you realizing it? We live in a world designed to keep you under control. Advertising, social media, pornography, consumption, everything has been meticulously designed to exploit the most basic human weakness, the search for immediate pleasure. But who is in charge? You, or those who know exactly which triggers to pull to manipulate your mind? The manipulation of human desires is not a new concept. Since ancient times, leaders and institutions have understood that controlling what people want is more effective than controlling them by force. The Roman Empire, for example, used the policy of bread and circuses to keep people distracted. While gladiators fought and bread was handed out for free, no one questioned the power of the empire. Today, the method is more sophisticated, but the strategy is the same. You don't need shackles when you're trapped in an endless cycle of pleasure seeking. Studies show that the human brain works in reward cycles. Every like, every message received, every purchase made releases dopamine, the pleasure neurotransmitter. That's why it's so hard to stop. You open a social network for a second, and before you know it, you've wasted an hour. You eat a sweet and then want another. You promise it'll just be one more episode, but suddenly it's dawn. This isn't a mistake or a lack of willpower. This is behavioral engineering at its finest. The consumer industry invests billions in understanding how to addict your mind. Every year, companies hire neuroscientists to make products more engaging, more irresistible. The colors of apps, the sounds of notifications, the way feeds are organized. All of this is designed to hook you. You're not just using an app, you're being used by it. And the scariest thing? You don't even realize it. One of psychology's best-known experiments, carried out by researcher B.F. Skinner, showed how rats pressed buttons to receive small doses of food or pleasurable stimuli. If the reward came predictably, the rats quickly lost interest. But when the reward was random, they became obsessed, pressing the button indefinitely. Now swap the mice for humans and the buttons for your favorite apps. You swipe the screen, not knowing exactly when the next reward will come. A like, a message, an interesting video. That's what keeps you trapped. Modern slavery has no chains. It has distractions. Instead of handcuffs, we have excess dopamine. You don't need to be forced to work 14 hours a day if you can be persuaded to spend every penny you earn on what you don't really need. You don't need to be prevented from thinking if you're entertained all the time, endlessly scrolling screens, feeding a mind that never stops but never really thinks. The philosophers of antiquity already warned about this. Seneca said that, "Nothing is enough for those who consider what is enough to be little." Human beings have always wanted more. But today, that more is not defined by you. It's defined by algorithms that know exactly what you want before you even realize it. But this manipulation doesn't just happen in the digital world. The education system itself teaches you from an early age to follow orders, to seek external approval, to want what society has predetermined as success. Most people don't choose their profession. They choose what they have been conditioned to believe will bring security and status. Marketing sells us not just products, but entire lifestyles. You need the car of the year, the perfect body, the dream house. But what if those dreams aren't really yours? This explains why so many people, despite achieving everything they thought they wanted, still feel empty. They fight for something, suffer to achieve it, and when they finally get there, they realized that it didn't bring the happiness they had hoped for. Because deep down, it wasn't an authentic choice. It was just a reflection of what they were taught to want. So tell me, do you really have control over your desires? Because if the answer is no, then you've never been free. Every uncontrolled desire carries with it the potential for destruction. History proves this. Great leaders, powerful men, creative geniuses, how many of them have not fallen before their own lack of control? Alexander the Great conquered the world, but he was a slave to his impulses. Napoleon conquered armies, but didn't conquer himself. Kings have lost their thrones, empires have collapsed, and fortunes have disappeared because their owners didn't understand a basic principle. The man who doesn't control his desires will be controlled by them. But what about you? Do you really have control over yourself? Think about the last time you felt an overwhelming desire. Perhaps it was for an immediate pleasure food, sex, an impulse purchase, a momentary satisfaction. Did you give in? Or were you able to resist? What differentiates a slave from a master is not the absence of desire, but the ability to use it as a tool. Because desire in itself is not the problem. The problem is being dominated by it. In the past, samurai warriors believed that mental discipline was more important than physical strength. For them, true power lay in mastering oneself before mastering an enemy. Miyamoto Musashi, the greatest swordsman in Japanese history, wrote that, "He who conquers himself is the true invincible." This means that the greatest battlefield is not outside, it's inside you. Now, look at the modern world. Instead of swords and wars, our fight is against an invisible enemy, dopamine. Every cell phone notification, every short video, every instant pleasure activates the same brain circuits that get gamblers hooked on casinos. Technology has been created to hijack your will, making you a servant of automatic impulses. And the consequence? A world of weak, anxious people with no control over their own lives. But what if there was another way? What if instead of being a victim of your desires, you could channel them into something greater? Alchemy, an ancient philosophical practice, talked about turning lead into gold. But its real teaching wasn't about metals. It was about the human spirit. The alchemists knew that within every vice lies hidden potential. Desire can be fuel for destruction or for creation. Lust, for example, can make you addicted to pleasure, or it can be converted into energy to create, conquer, build. Gluttony can lead to physical decay, or it can be transformed into discipline to nourish your body properly. Great artists, writers, and visionaries understood this. Nikola Tesla, one of the greatest inventors in history, was obsessed with controlling his own impulses. He believed that sexual energy, when directed, could be converted into creativity and genius. Others, like Da Vinci, Isaac Newton, and even Freud, talked about the importance of channeling one's deepest desires into production and discovery. Does this mean that you should become a monk and reject all pleasure? It means that instead of being controlled, you need to learn to use your impulses to your advantage. And how do you do that? The answer lies in what the Stoics called the transmutation of desire, a process in which you take an impulse and redirect it into something productive. If you feel the urge to procrastinate, use that energy to create something. If you feel an uncontrollable desire for immediate pleasure, turn it into ambition to achieve something meaningful. The secret is not to fight your desires, it's to train them, tame them, use them as a weapon. The truth is that those who master this process become unstoppable, because most people are weak. Most give in, most get distracted, but the few who learn to channel their desires become the true masters of their own destiny. And now comes the final question. Will you remain a puppet of your impulses, or will you learn to use them as a tool of power? Is this content making you reflect and sparking new ways of thinking? If so, click the Super Thanks button just below the video. It's a way to say thank you and help me bring more content like this to those who need to reflect on life. Have you ever noticed that most people never really become free? They live believing that they make choices, that they decide their paths, but in reality they spend their lives being pulled by invisible forces. They are ruled by fear, by desire, by the impulse of the moment. Like a boat adrift, they are carried by the currents of their own emotions, without ever really taking the helm. But there is another kind of person, someone who doesn't just react to the world, but shapes it to their will. Someone who doesn't bow to passing desires, but uses them as fuel for something much greater. This person is not a slave to their own impulses. They are masters of themselves. What differentiates one from the other? Control. Since ancient times, this has always been true power. Kings, warriors, monks, strategists, all those who have achieved something significant in history had one skill in common: mastery of their own mind. While most give in to immediate desire, they learn to channel their energy into the long term. They don't act on impulse, they choose. And here's the brutal truth: either you control your desires, or they control you. The problem is that we've been conditioned to believe that freedom means doing what we want at any time. But that's not freedom. That's slavery. Anyone who only does what they want, when they want, is a prisoner of their emotions. The truly free person is the one who can want something and still say no. Imagine a man who wants revenge because he has been betrayed. He feels the impulse to react, to attack, to give back in kind. But at the last moment, he stops. He takes a breath. He thinks. And instead of acting out of anger, he chooses a smarter, more strategic path. He has power over himself. Now imagine another man, seized by the same emotion but unable to hold it in. He explodes, reacts without thinking, puts himself at risk. He thinks he's strong, but he's weak, because his will doesn't belong to him. The difference between these two men is the difference between a master and a slave. What about you? Which of the two have you been? Modern science proves what the ancients already knew. Self-control is the basis for any success in life. Studies show that children who manage to delay gratification, as in the famous marshmallow experiment, have more success, more emotional stability, and healthier relationships in adulthood. This is because the ability to resist an immediate desire means that you have power over your own future. You're not just a victim of circumstances. You create your own rules. But how do you achieve this level of control? The answer isn't simple, but it starts with a fundamental change. You need to stop seeing yourself as someone who fights their own desires and start seeing them as tools. Desire is not the enemy. Desire is energy. If you just try to suppress it, it will turn against you. But if you learn to redirect it, you can turn it into fuel. The Buddhist monk doesn't cancel out his sexual energy. He converts it into enlightenment. The warrior doesn't quench his anger. He channels it into discipline. The artist doesn't kill his obsession. He uses it to create something immortal. The question is not, how do I kill my desires? The question is, how do I use them to my advantage? The answer? Direction. When you feel a strong impulse, instead of giving into it immediately, stop and ask yourself, if I couldn't act on impulse, what would I do with this energy? And then use it for something that really builds your life. This takes practice, discipline, awareness. But once you learn this skill, the world no longer has power over you. You are no longer a slave to the algorithms, the propaganda, the temptations that surround you. You become someone who can enter chaos without getting lost in it. And here's the great truth. Being the master of yourself doesn't mean eliminating impulses. It means mastering them, transforming them, and using them as stepping stones to becoming who you really can be. Because in the end, there are only two types of people in the world: those who are dragged down by their own desires and those who use them to create something greater. The question is, which one do you choose to be? If you've made it this far, you've already taken a step beyond most people. You're subscribed to the channel, you watch the videos, you reflect on every idea. Now the question is, how far do you want to take this? If you want to take the next step and truly apply this knowledge to your life, the White Rabbit Codes is ready for you. The link is in the pinned comment. Remember, success is a decision. The choice is yours. Count on me and follow the White Rabbit.